There is multiple ways to get boost control using aftermarket fuel management systems. Today's video is simply focusing on how to install dual stage electronic boost controller to use alongside my stock computer, tuning software, and stock harness. Welcome back to the channel. Today we're going to be installing a dual stage boost controller from turbosmart. And if you follow the channel here, you guys already know we run a manual boost controller here on our intake, which is much like the controller you see here. There's actually two of them. So by the end of the video, we're gonna be out on the street trying to test this out, see if it works. But we'll talk about that here in a second. Let's get into the video. All right, so what you have here is a turbosmart TS 0105-1102, and it's a dual stage. Basically has two manual boost control valves here. It has a low boost setting, and then there's, when you hit a switch or toggle it, it goes to a high boost setting. So here in the kit, you got the controller itself, the supplied vacuum line, which we're gonna actually replace with 3/16 fuel line, as that's a little bit more robust and heavy duty for the engine bay. You got your diverter valve. The arrow points towards the wastegate. This is the inlet side of it, which would be your boost reference. Now, some folks use the compressor housing as the boost reference. I actually use manifold pressure from, just a fitting on my intake. We're gonna go ahead and take this one off and just attach it to the intake. And the diverter valve I just showed you, this is my wastegate line that comes from my intake. We're just gonna cut right here, and then we're going to install the diverter valve. You can use whatever vacuum line you want. We're near heat sources here, so I'm a little bit worried about it getting, collapsing the hose. We're going to bring the intake hose through the heater core here, attached to the diverter, and that's pretty much all I got to do here. So we're going to actually install the controller inside the car so I can control it from there with the toggle switch and a button. One thing I did want to make mention of the diverter valve here is the inlet side has a ball and spring in it, and that ball and spring can actually get dirty or clogged up. Definitely want to keep this in an area that you can take it apart and clean it regularly, as the intake could put debris and stuff inside of it. You can see the big port goes towards the wastegate. The small port comes from your boost reference, like I said, is either the turbo or the intake itself. So what's included in the kit's pretty basic. You got your controller, which has your solenoid signal, which would be just your ground and your signal wire. You got your low boost setting, you got your high boost setting, and counterclockwise closes the valve all the way. You want to be careful because you can damage the valve. So we made two marks, as I'm going to make clockwise turns when I go to set this up. Like, I've already set it up with 2 clockwise turns on the high setting, because on the low setting has nothing going to it but spring pressure. And I already know we have about an 11-pound spring in there at load, so we're looking to see maybe 15 or 16 on the high setting. And that's kind of why we're putting this in. The reason why I'm installing this controller is I want to be able to have on the fly a switch and or a button to add 4 or 5 pounds on my gate. So the kit does come with a bracket that comes on the back here, and it's got these little screws that actually mount it. We're going to actually mount this controller inside the car. A couple, sheet metal screws or whatever on the dash frame behind the glove box or whatever. That way I can control it from in the cab. And the vacuum line that I told you I was going to replace can go right through the little hole through the firewall, come up and attach to the diverter valve, and we should be all set. Last thing we got to do is ground the solenoid off and put the signal wire on the toggle. By feeding the toggle power, will enable the high boost setting, allowing it to switch on the fly or even on a button. And again, we could add low boost setting power to it as well, much like we did with the Grim Speed on this side of the valve, and never run the button at all. Or, it could act as a multi-purpose, and this is something that we've been wanting to do on the channel for a while. So, got your ground spade, got a couple connectors for the toggle switches. Let's get busy with the install. So the bracket's pretty easy. We're gonna actually go sideways with it, which is nice because you can mount this bracket pretty much any way you want. There's a radio frame bolt that we're going to mount this to behind the console and keep this inside the cabin. Direct feed with the new vacuum line that we're putting on. I'll be able to reach under there and adjust this without much effort. What we do with the diverter valve is we're going to cut a section out of my wastegate. I'm just going to go ahead and cut this. This is 3/16 fuel line, so this has been in here a while. And again, the big end goes towards the wastegate, and then the small end goes towards the vacuum reference. For me, it would be on the vacuum over there. So all I gotta do is bring the hose up through my firewall here and attach it here to this diverter valve. So at the same time, we're gonna go ahead and remove our old manual boost controller from our boost reference, which is our intake. And that same line I just cut, we'll just go ahead and go right to the intake itself. And we'll end up doing little clamps to it eventually. We're gonna mount it, like I said, behind the radio with one of the old radio bolts. Pretty cool. Got its own stud there, factory. We went ahead and put 2 clicks into it, so that should make a significant difference in boost. And we wired up the toggle. We gotta ground it, toggle hooked up. This will go to our power source, which we already have for our button for our 2-step. We just mount, ground, hook up our, hook up this real quick from our 2-step, and we should be able to go out in the street and see how well this works on low setting. And then flip the switch, and then I should see power at high setting. We'll figure it out. Okay, we have the turbosmart boost controller hooked up. Go into the car real quick. I kind of stole from my 2-step, mounted it underneath behind the radio, and used the 2-step as a power and a switch. We came out here and went through the pipe right there and went to the diverter valve and hooked it out from underneath the dash. So now we're gonna go make a street hit and see if it actually works. We put 2 clicks into the high port setting, which we'll switch over to that and we'll see how much boost it gets. Okay, we have it set to our old 2-step button, and you can see the controller works. You can hear it, got power and signal. I was a little curious about the polarity on the solenoid on the actual controller, because it doesn't really say, this should be your power and this should be your ground. It's just that they're both 2 small wires that look the same. So we know that the gate, we make 10.5, 11 pounds. We put about 2 clicks in the controller. It should make at least a pound or 2 more to know it works. So we'll be back. All right, so what we're gonna do is make a couple of like 3rd gear pulls. Nothing super fancy. We know the switch is working on the button here, which is exactly what I wanted it to do. All right, guys, we're gonna head over to the dyno. We're gonna tweak it and tune it at the dyno. You see it worked right there at the initial hit. Again, we're gonna go confirm that it does work. We're gonna put our dyno wheels on because I don't dyno on my drag slicks. All right, we're here at the dyno shop. We're gonna go ahead and start messing with this controller. We gotta hook up the AFR. I got the boost hooked up, and we're pretty much ready. Okay, we got it set up right now on the low and the high on the button. He's gonna hit the button mid-pass. So we should have seen about 12 at the beginning, which we did, which is right on point. And then he held the button down and it went up to 14.5. So it did work. So we could actually tune a little bit more, put a little bit more in this click. 12 is where we want to be, so I'm gonna take another click or 2 out here. And this actually works. I'm pretty excited. You can tell that when the engine started revving up. So, you guys enjoy this sort of video, leave me a thumbs up, consider subscribing. Mad Scientist Dave Dog over here at TI Dyno. See you guys soon in the next video. Hope you guys enjoyed it. 14.5. It gave me 2 pounds of boost on the button click.